Hi, kindergarten, first and second grade leaders. We're winding up our series goal and helping kids ask and answer the question, what is God like? God is good, holy, and loving. And as we've talked about throughout this entire series, it's important for kids to know that God is truly all of those things and that He is the one true God because He is all of those things. Your social activity for one more time is your cooties game. I hope the kids are having fun with this, and I hope that you guys have been able to laugh and enjoy each other's creations as you have played this game together. We will move into large group, and in our large group today, we're going to be talking about God's rules for sacrifice that He wrote in Leviticus. Now, you remember last week we talked about the tabernacle and how God gave the instructions for the tabernacle to be built. When He asked for the Israelites to build this tabernacle, it was a reminder to them that they needed to worship only God, not their fat gold cows or their whatever other idol that they chose to worship at the time. That they were to worship God alone, and that they should do everything possible to make sure that God is the one true God in how they respond. And so He gave some specific instructions for the way sacrifices would be taken care of. Remember, sacrifices were God's way of showing the Israelites who He was, but also for them to acknowledge who He was to them. And so through these sacrifices, they are learning to worship God in new ways, likely. They're learning to put God first. I know many Jewish people today still even follow all of these rules, and they're very, very strict rules. And they do that because they didn't realize that Jesus came to be the one that made it to where we didn't have to do all of that anymore. That God's design all along was for Jesus to be born to make a way for us to have relationship with Him, that we don't have to do the sacrifices to have relationship with Him. We don't have to eat certain foods at certain times. We don't have to wash a certain way to have relationship with Him. But the Israelites at this time needed this because Jesus wasn't there yet. They needed this to remember that God was their God. And so in your small group time, you are going to just spend a little time talking to each other about what sacrifice is. Maybe you want to help kids define what sacrifice is and what that means. I know in my life in particular, when I think of sacrifice, I think of having to give up something so that something else can be more important than what I think is important. And so when I think of sacrifice, that's definitely what I'm picturing. And so maybe help the kids know what you think sacrifice is and what that looks like. And that sometimes sacrifice is not just giving up things, but it's giving up preferences. Like I don't have to listen to my favorite music all of the time. That I can sacrifice listening to my favorite music so that I can have relationship with my friends. And so there's some scenarios in your leader guide that you can go through and ask kids to talk about what are some things that they'd be willing to sacrifice. Like, would they be willing to sacrifice watching TV for practicing their spelling words or working on their favorite sport, or like pitching or kicking or dancing or practicing their instrument or whatever it is that they're into? Would they be willing to give up some TV time so that they can get better at whatever else they're doing? Ultimately, what you're trying to do is help kids understand this idea of sacrifice. And then it should lead you into explaining how Jesus is our ultimate sacrifice, that Jesus was sent to be that ultimate sacrifice, the lamb that was slain, so that we could all have relationship with God. And so as you begin to share that with the kids, maybe this is a good time for you to share your faith story and how you began to believe that Jesus is your one and only God, and how you have changed many things in your life so that you could show that God and Jesus are your number one. What it takes for you, maybe even to come and be a small group leader. Maybe some of the kids don't understand that you are here as a volunteer. Of course, I don't ever see you as just volunteers, you're leaders, but they may not understand that. And so talk about that. Then as kids are leaving, you'll have a letter to send home with families. We want for families to help us have the conversation with their kid. I'm not saying we can't have conversations with their kids about believing in and trusting in Jesus, and we can even maybe with some of the kids pray with them to show them that they are believing in Jesus for life. But we also want to include the family. And so remember that as you're beginning to have those conversations with your kids in your small group, that you want to include the family. So we have a letter that parents can know about. If you had a conversation with a kid, really encourage the kid to tell the parent or a family member about a decision that they made. But also maybe you want to help by telling family members as they come and pick up the kids what we talked about today and why it was important, and that you are there, or I am there, to continue that conversation as need be. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for giving your life and sacrificing time and energy and time alone in church so that other kids and other families can continue to grow and know who Jesus is. Thank you, and I'll see you guys soon.